I'm Mark.
And I'm Josh.
And this is Alter Ego Comics TV, episode number 179. We're back with this week's best comics and a top 5 list that ties in with what we're talking about this week. First things first, my pick of the week is Edge of Spider-Verse number 2, Gwen Stacy, Spider-Woman. We're going to throw as many words in the title as possible with these books. This is written by Jason Latour with artwork by Rodriguez. Robbie? Carlos? Juan? What is your name, Rodriguez? Help me. Credits. Robbie. I thought it was Robbie Rodriguez. Credits don't go in the front anymore. They go wherever people want to put them. So this is the continuing saga of Spider-Men and or women from parallel universes, introducing us to those characters, and they're part of the larger Spider-Verse tapestry that's being painted over at Marvel by Dan Slott and Christos Gage and a bunch of other people. And this is just such a good book. If you can only buy one book this week, I say it's this one. Basically, it's a world where Gwen gets bitten by the spider, becomes Spider-Woman. Peter Parker's destiny takes a different path. Captain Stacy is still a police officer and still around. And Mary Jane's in there, and Glory Grant's in there, and a lot of familiar faces from our Spider-Man. So it reads like a what if, but it's going to tie in, as I said, with Spider-Verse, and this is not the last that we're going to see of Gwen Stacy, Spider-Woman. Really enjoyed the book. I would read this as a series.
Absolutely. I want to read that as a series, actually.
I do. I want to read Gwen Stacy, Spider-Woman as a monthly ongoing. Make it happen, Marvel. It's excellent, whether you're a especially if you're a Spider-Man fan, or if you're just looking for, anybody can pick this book up. If you're only familiar with Spider-Man from the movies or cartoons, or you haven't read Spider-Man comic books in 30 years, anybody can pick this up and enjoy it. And I'll leave it at that. It's just great.
Super awesome. Next up, my pick of the week is Miles Morales, The Ultimate Spider-Man, number 5. And this continues the saga of somebody showed up in the Marvel Universe claiming to be Peter Parker wearing a spider suit. And in the last issue, we had the cops, the police force, had surrounded both Peter and Miles and were suggesting they remove their masks and lay down on the ground. And that never really works out for the police to request that of superheroes. But this was really great. You see a little more interaction between Peter and Miles, but the most interesting stuff is once Miles gets off on his own and between him and Maria Hill. That's the bulk of the issue, is the two of them interacting. And we also get some great stuff with the, once again, out in the world, Norman Osborn with J. Jonah Jameson. That is quite cool and may have set up something significant for the next issue, depending on how the cliffhanger resolves. But Miles Morales, Bendis is just knocking it out of the park every month for years on end now, and it is good again this month.
Hello.
I didn't see you there.
I have to look. There we go. I thought that's what it was. All right. So Daredevil number 8 by Marc Waid and Chris Samnee is also on my list this week. It's the one with the purple cover over here with the Children of the Corn or Stepford Children on the cover. And there's a lot to like about this. I will set things up by saying that it is the darkest Daredevil story, I think, since Waid has been writing Daredevil. Marc Waid was praised initially because his Daredevil was back to the swashbuckling, happy-go-lucky Matt Murdock, and he had his ups and downs since Waid's been writing it, and he's written close to 40 or 50 issues between the two series, and as far as I can remember, this goes into like super dark territory that we haven't seen before, and it doesn't end the way that you think it's going to end, which was a surprise. We'll see what happens. Again, we have cliffhanger endings in multiple books this week. So we'll see what happens when the next issue comes out. But I don't want to spoil too much, but the cover is purple. If you've read the solicits for this, you know that the bad guy in this one is the Purple Man, who we haven't seen in quite a while. I think he was last messed around with by Brian Michael Bendis. He may have popped up in various other places, but he was in a New Avengers storyline, like an old New Avengers.
He was in the Heroes for Hire stuff that Abnett and Lanning did. That's the last time I remember him, but I could certainly be forgetting something.
But he's a pretty evil guy. And we saw glimpses of that when Bendis wrote him. I don't know how it was. I didn't read the Abnett and Lanning stuff, so I don't know how that worked out. But
he's still
He's still evil.
He's still evil, yeah.
So he has impregnated women through the years, and he's now going around and gathering up the children of those encounters, and they have the ability that he has, which is basically to mind control people. So he's gathering those kids. The opening scene is a very traumatic scene where he's kidnapping a son. And on the flip side, we get kind of a lighthearted scenario where Matt and Kirsten meet Kirsten's parents, I should say father and stepmother. And her father is a socialite. Is socialite right for a male?
I don't know.
Socialist? No, that's not right.
He's a playboy. I don't know.
No, he's not. He's a wealthy guy who made his fortune in book publishing, of all places. I hope he's
pretty old.
Hope he invested that money wisely. And he basically offers Matt the opportunity. He keeps referring to Matt as Daredevil, which is funny.
He only calls him Daredevil.
Matt's there in civilian attire, and he only calls him Daredevil. But he offers Matt, or should I say Daredevil, $8 million to tell his story, to do an autobiography of Daredevil. So we'll see where that goes, because you can tell Matt's kind of thinking about it, because the law firm is not doing as well. But I don't know where Matt's head is these days, because I mean, he's just like out in public, acting like Daredevil. He's swinging around, on monkey cages at the zoo, and he's posing for pictures, and people are wearing hats that say, "I'm not Daredevil."
It's San Francisco. A blind superhero is not the most...
There are superheroes all over the place. But it was another extremely well-written book. You get to see the personal stuff between Matt and Kirsten. You get the reintroduction of the Purple Man and his flock, and who knows where this is going to go, but right now it looks like it's going someplace very dark.
Next up this week, we've got The Multiversity, Society of Superheroes, Conqueror from the Counterworld. Yeah, lots of words. All right, so in case you were wondering, Grant Morrison's galaxy or reality-spanning opus, Multiversity, is not being published in a normal issue 1, issue 2, issue 3 format. It's a series of number ones. So this is the second part of Multiversity, and so if you're reading Multiversity, you should absolutely check it out. And I like this one a lot more than I like the first issue of regular Multiversity. This is much more a straightforward, here's an alternate reality, here's what's going on in it. And it does still wrap around, have some hints, and tie into the main continuity. But it was a reality that, as far as I know, we haven't seen before. It's very Earth 2-y. The main characters, Dr. Fate, the classic Atom. The Atom, to get smaller, not... What was the punching
the strong
Atom?
Guy.
Yeah. The short...
Al Spratt.
Yeah.
No, Al Pratt.
Pratt, yes.
Chris Pratt. No, that's not it.
Chris Pratt. No, he's Star-Lord, man. But I just really like the feel of this. It's very 30s, 40s kind of pulpy stuff. You've got Abin Sur as the Green Lantern of Earth, and everyone thinks he's a demon, which is part of the mystique of Dr. Fate communing with demons and whatnot. Just contacting. They're not communing in the traditional sense. But you've got very cool DC... I just love Elseworld stories, and seeing a lot of characters who I like showing up in this alternate reality, how they're interacting. The way the universe is put together is very sharp, and it maintains that cool pulpy feel throughout. The Dr. Fate outfit is very much the Rocketeer outfit, especially with his helmet and the flares and whatnot. But just a lot of fun, and much more enjoyable than I expected the second part of Multiversity to be.
Well,
less crazy.
I would probably attribute that to, number one, you actually recognize the characters that are in this issue, unlike the first issue of Multiversity. And number two, Chris Sprous's artwork is awesome.
It is.
I mean, it fits this story, I think, very well. So, cool. All right, last up for me, I'm going to hit on 2 graphic novels that came out this week that you don't want to miss. First one is Batman Unwrapped, The Court of the Owls. Now, this is the first 11 issues or the first big story arc, so the first 2 trades of Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo's run on Batman, but it only features Capullo's pencils, so it's not colored, it's black and white. It's the closest you're going to get to, having an artist edition or original art from the Court of the Owls storyline.
And it is lettered. It has all the word balloons
it's the
stuff,
complete
so
it's the complete story.
It's readable. It's just not inked or colored.
Yeah, it's basically a kind of like it's not a director's cut. It's it's a sketchbook version,
right?
But it's the complete story, so you have all the lettering in the stories there, just no colored pages. And actually, I noticed they use color on. I don't know if they did it to have the text stand out more, but
probably.
It's super cool. It's an oversized hardcover. If you're a Batman fan, if you're a fan of Capullo's artwork, if you're an art fan, this is absolutely for you. It might be for me. If it sits around here too long, or I may end up getting one myself because it is super cool. Next up, also from DC Comics, we've got the New Teen Titans Volume 1. This is by Marv Wolfman and George Perez. This is it's a big deal. Teen Titans was going toe-to-toe with Uncanny X-Men in the early 1980s. It was the yin to its yang, and many people that were reading one were reading the other. And it was a team of young teenagers that were kind of misfits and forced to get along, and the stories were very real world, and I want to say kind of adult, but not super adult. They were more elaborate than some of the other comic book fare that was being published by Marvel and DC at the time. So there hasn't been a collected edition of, this is the first, it's about 10 issues, I think, of Wolfman and Perez's run. You get, the early days of Cyborg and Dick Grayson as Robin, and Starfire's there and Changeling, the crew. Just super cool to have. From a historical standpoint, it's one of the most important comics of the early 1980s, and this is like 1980, 81. Before we got into things like The Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen and The Killing Joke and things like that. So hopefully this is the first of several volumes that will come out collecting the Wolfman Perez stuff, and it's very affordable. It's only $20. So again, I apologize. I don't know how many issues are in it, but it's definitely very affordable and worth your money.
And last up, my last pick this week is a book that actually came out last week, and it is What If? Serious Scientific Answers to Absurd Hypothetical Questions. This is written by Randall Munroe, who is certainly best known for his webcomic XKCD, which is known for sort of science and pop culture-y jokes and being all stick figure art. What If is basically, every week on his site, Munroe has a What If column where he answers a hypothetical question. He takes submissions and then just pulls one out of the hat and answers it to the best of his ability, even if it's ridiculous. Like, how many machine guns would you need to make a jetpack that would actually allow you to lift off? Or what would happen if you exploded a nuclear warhead inside of a tornado? Would it dissipate the tornado? And he does just a great job of giving relatively hard science, because science can only be so hard when you're talking about ridiculous things. But he uses the scientific method, breaks things down, and I like a lot of the times he actually works out the logic of why he answers a question the way he does. He talks about using different types of estimation, like Fermi estimation, and very, very interesting stuff. And his resources, when he shows his work for how he got information, like, just because we're figuring out, for example, the jetpack gun thing, how much does a machine gun weigh? How much does a bullet weigh? What's the average muzzle velocity? He doesn't just look it up online. He explains how he did it. Well, I called these people. We weighed out 18 versions of this and took an average. And
I called the guys at Mythbusters, and they gave me the answers.
But the true brilliance of it is it's incredibly funny. You see on the cover there, you've got a T-Rex being dropped into a Sarlacc pit. You've got just great asides and jokes. His comics are really funny, and he manages to make things. He makes learning fun, I guess, even though it's not primarily a book about learning. There's a lot of cool science stuff in here, and it's definitely nice, fun. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I was super excited that it was coming out in hardcover. I read them all every week as they came out, and now I own the nice book so that I can read them at any time, even when the power is off. When we're at the end of the world and the raptors are attacking, I'll be able to read What If.
When there's time enough at last, you will
yes,
sit
and I
on the
break
steps
my
of the
glasses.
library and read What If by Randall Munroe. We do have copies available, obviously, in the shop if you're local and want to pick it up. All right, so in honor of the new Teen Titans Volume 1 coming out this week, and a new series by George Perez called Sirens from Boom Studios, and this is one where he's writing and drawing, we're going to go through our top 5 must-read George Perez comic books. We will, of course, begin with New Teen Titans. Whether you're reading single issues or omnibuy or the new volume that just came out this week. And let me preface this by saying that George Perez is one of the most respected artists in comics. He has been from pretty much the very beginning. Because the detail that he puts into characters, the number of panels that he can draw on a page and still have it be legible is astounding. There are lots of people... I could throw out some names, but I won't. There are people that do splash pages, and they're known for doing splash pages or, half-page panels or things like that. Perez is definitely one who is known for, the 9-panel page. A lot of times it's talking heads, but a lot of times it's action too, and he's definitely still got his A game. He's doing kind of things selectively these days. I know he's had some eye issues of late. But I don't know if he's Boom exclusive or not, but he's done some covers for Boom, and now Sirens is the first series that he is both writing and drawing exclusively for Boom. So we'll go with New Teen Titans Volume 1.
Well, and I think the best argument there is Teen Titans has been around for 40 years, 50 years. When was that Brave and the Bold? That was 50s or 60s?
That wasn't him, though.
Right, but I'm saying the Teen Titans has been.
Yeah.
And we've gotten 2 or 3 different cartoon shows, and they've all been based on the Perez Teen Titans.
Yeah.
That is the Teen Titans. You know, there's a half dozen different incarnations with completely different lineups, but the Perez...
Well,
Wolfman stuff
the Wolfman was doing the writing. I think they were probably co-plotting, and they were co-collaborators the way that a lot of these guys are that write books together for a long time. I would prefer that Teen Titans Go look like George Perez artwork instead of the manga-inspired stuff that's going on there, but oh well, it's just me. So, number 2.
Number 2 on the list is George Perez's Wonder Woman. Go.
Published after Crisis on Infinite Earths and after Legends, which kind of rebooted the DC universe, kind of, sort of, not really, in the mid-1980s. Perez was given a crack at writing in addition to drawing. He had, and we'll touch on a couple of these things down the road, but he had drawn Justice League for a little while. He had obviously done New Teen Titans, and so DC gave him control of Wonder Woman, and he took it back to her Greek roots, very much so, but also involved contemporary humans that were her touch points. There was a young girl that was involved. I can't remember her name, as well as her mother. Her mother. So he left the penciling duties after a while, but kept writing the book, and some other pencilers came on board. But he had a really long run writing Wonder Woman. I mean, I want to say someone's going to call me out on this, but it was at least 60 or 70 issues where he was involved. And again, it set the stage for where Wonder Woman as a character went after Crisis on Infinite Earths. So it was a big deal. Number 3, let's see. Let's go with, you know what? We got to go with JLA Avengers, the inter-company crossover written by Kurt Busiek with artwork by George Perez, of course. This had been long rumored, long gestating, and finally saw the light of day in the late 1990s, early 2000s. It was a 4-issue prestige format miniseries where the JLA and the Avengers get together, and honestly, there could have been no words in this book, and I still would have loved it, because you had George Perez drawing the Justice League and the Avengers, 2 teams that he had previously worked on, but getting them all together, and it's collected in a softcover that collects all 4. Is that out of print?
I'm not 100% sure.
I don't know if we have one in the shop, because it may be out of print. If it is, shame on you, DC, or Marvel, or whoever has the publishing rights to it. It's just really, really cool. It's one of those, fanboy, fangirl dream projects. Yeah. Who's going to win in a fight between Superman and Thor, or Wonder Woman and Storm, or, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and even if you've never read it, I think you've probably seen panels from it. Anytime someone gets in a fight in the internet, you see Superman with the shield. See a tap shield briefly, and I think it is definitely reinforcing what you said earlier about Perez being well respected. This is the big time. This is the 2 biggest teams from the 2 biggest publishers crossing over. It's a once in a lifetime thing, and they picked Perez to write it. They got
to draw it.
Sorry, draw it.
Busiek wrote it, and if I remember correctly, they were waiting on Perez for this. That they were waiting for his schedule to open up, so that he was the guy that everybody wanted to draw this. There was no second choice. It was either George Perez does this or we don't do it.
Did he draw the New Teen Titans X-Men crossover?
He did not. That was Walt Simonson, but is also worth picking up. I believe it was written by Chris Claremont and maybe Marv Wolfman, but it was drawn by Simonson. Okay, so that brings us to number 4, George Perez's Avengers. Actually, it's Kurt Busiek and George Perez's Avengers, and it fit right in with the timeline of JLA Avengers. This was the Avengers team right after Heroes Reborn, or it was the Heroes Reborn Avengers team after the Onslaught stuff that went on with Onslaught and Franklin Richards and crazy stuff. But this is arguably one of the best Avengers creator teams ever, and it's a phenomenal run. They did about 35 or 40 issues together, and there's a whole bunch of cool stuff. Everybody that was ever an Avenger is pretty much in the first 3 issues. So Perez gets to draw a lot of different Marvel characters. And it's, again, when we're talking about artists, we're primarily talking about eye candy. We're talking about, things that are visually pleasing. And it helps that he's worked with a lot of collaborators that are great writers, and they've been able to provide the story that's necessary. And Busiek definitely brought it with the Avengers series that came out of Heroes Reborn. Available in softcover and hardcover, I believe, at this point, where they collected them.
I'm not sure all the volumes are available.
In softcover. Yeah, I mean, I know the hardcovers, some of them are out of print. Yeah. There was one, Volume 2 or Volume 3 wasn't available. But I'm pretty sure that they've done these in softcover. And they are definitely worth your time if you're an Avengers fan. And again, just for the artwork alone, even though the story is incredibly solid. So that brings us to number 5, and Josh will sit here.
I will nod a lot.
And this was a tough one, and there were lots of directions to go in. But for me personally, and that's all I can talk about is myself, is kind of taking a little bit of both worlds here, and that's George Perez's work on Justice League of America and the Avengers, and this was all late 1970s, early 1980s. He just draws great superheroes. That's it. I mean, these characters that we're all familiar with, he really brought new depth to all of them visually, and he had a great... They were short runs on both of those titles, maybe 6 or 8 issues at the most, but I believe that they're all collected as well. So, if you want to see George Perez drawing all of the... Basically, everything involved. Everything here is pretty much DC or Marvel. Honorable mentions go to his work at CrossGen Comics, in the mid-1990s, and he did some creator-owned stuff, and now he's doing the creator-owned stuff again over at Boom with Siren. So we salute you, George Perez, as one of the best artists in comics.
And we salute your awesome Hawaiian shirts.
Yes, we salute your Hawaiian shirts, absolutely. So that's it. If we left something out, and we probably did, let us know in the comments below. And keep those suggestions coming for top 5 lists, because we're starting to run out of gas as far as our top 5s. I know that there have been some suggestions that we'll be following up on. We'll be doing a top 5 Jeff Johns somewhere down the road. They'll all be Green Lantern. And some of the things that people are asking for, we just don't have the knowledge or the breadth of work to really comment on. Top 5 Flash stories, for example, would be nice, but with the Flash TV series coming out. But I can't think of specifics. I can think of, Mark Waid had a great run on The Flash. Yeah. Jeff Johns had a great run on The Flash. And that's about the extent of what I can tell you about The Flash. So we'll do our best. We're sorry. We'll be like Randall Monroe and just make stuff up. And be like, oh. If you are local, this will go up in time for you to take part in our Gotham viewing party, which is Monday night, September 22nd. Doors open at 7:30. Show starts at 8. We'll kick you out at 9. And everyone that shows up gets a copy of Gotham Central #1, a free copy of that comic. Plus, our buddies over at Fox Lima have donated some Gotham swag that we'll be giving away, including T-shirts and posters and drinky things. Cups with straws, like travel cups. So hopefully you can join us for that. Seating is limited, so RSVP on the Facebook page. That's the best way to give us an idea of who's going to be here, because we just can't fit everybody in the shop. So that's Monday, September 22nd, Gotham viewing party right here at Alter Ego Comics. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.